Supposed to get record-breaking hot today again. Hot out. This lens is kind of entertaining, isn't it? Like I said earlier, my other lenses are on the boat, quite a ways away from right now. So I'll keep utilizing this, but it is kind of funny what it does to items that I put in the screen with me, right? A little story about this big whitetail rack. Years ago, I had shot a moose with my bow and arrow way up the Alaska Highway, northern British Columbia. We were packing the meat out, and I looked down on the grass, and this is probably only about maybe 100 meters from the Alaska Highway itself. And I looked down the grass, saw some, weird shapes in the grass, and I yarded it up, and here's this huge whitetail buck. I'm guessing he probably got hit by a car or a truck on the Alaska Highway and ran off and died in the weeds. And that's the story about this guy. And for the tape measure friendly, who are familiar with how you run a tape on the antlers of game, it's a 4x5, and I believe it was 165 or something like that. Nice big buck, big old buck. He had a bit of a Roman nose to his skull, which means old age was upon him, and lots of knurling and lots of little points on his bases, which is a sign of age too. And that's the story behind this guy. And it's kind of funny. I am right now exactly 1 arm's length from the lens, and this thing is about the tip of the tine is 12 inches from the lens. The lens is kind of comical. But anyway, I had a couple thoughts. I haven't had time to think much or go online. Yesterday, I cracked open my emails for the first time in over a week, probably close to 2 weeks, because obviously I haven't had time. I'm sweating right now. Been working outside, and there is 5, 10, 11 pages of new emails. 11 pages of new emails come in. The amount of people who are aware of what's really going on the planet might not know the intimate details of what's going on, but are aware of roughly what's going on our planet today, which we have to find out about ourselves the hard way, unfortunately, is quite staggering, don't you think? The amount of people looking for true, honest knowledge is staggering as well, but also relieving. It's relieving in a way to me to see so many people looking for knowledge on their own. Thank God. Thank God people are doing that, right? Anyways, I had some thoughts while thinking about this, because I cracked open my email and I read some emails last night. Actually, I just read a little bit of them and toss them into the folder, and I'm going to read some of these today, the recent ones emailed in, and then I'm going to go back because I have to organize the other folders, because I'll have them all down in the past folder, in the months folder. Let's like say an example, April's folder. And then I will mark it as red, and that pumps the email up to the top. And then later on in that month, if I grab more emails and stuff from that folder, they get stacked on top of the red ones. And that's where sometimes I've made mistakes. So I'll read down the ones marked as red. And then actually above those also going to be some without red in front of it. I'll read that, and that's where I can sometimes get a little mixed up and screw up and read them twice and get unorganized. So right now I'm at the really unorganized stage for some of those folders, so it's easy for me to go into recent emails sent in my inbox and grab a handful of those, put them in the July 2021 folder, and I'm going to read some of those in a second, all right? And that ensures that I don't double up. Not that that causes pain anyway. So what if you hear something twice? Big deal. Now here's the thought that I had, and I wrote it down. I don't know if I wrote it down to make any sense, but I thought my thoughts. What if these beings / people cannot be submitted by modern methods of today? Know what I mean? What if provoked, only one of these beings, what if one was provoked and it just laid down a wall of terror and annihilated a small community? Just think about it. And all of you people that have seen these things and that experience is with them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If one of these beings decided to cross that line in the middle of the night, how long do you think it would take one of those beings to clean out a house of humans in their sleep? What? 3 minutes? Right? I'm just going by a what if, just a random thought at the top of my brain. If you were to provoke these beings, cross that line, let's just say there was a line, you crossed it, you provoked them, and they decided to get some serious retribution on mankind, they could do some unbelievable damage, right? Some unbelievable damage. One of these beings, I am confident, could absolutely annihilate the majority of a small township overnight. I'm not kidding. Think about it. So who knows? I mean, it's obviously, I keep on hearing from a lot of people saying the government does not want anything to do with what they cannot control, right? Let's just say, I mean, here's an example. Look at what it's like in Afghanistan. For those people who basically dress in pajamas and sandals and pack AK-47s, and they have defeated the superpowers of the world. They defeated the military superpowers of the world with those mountain existence, seasonal fighting. They have. There's no arguing about it. Russia went in there for how many years, dropped how many millions of dollars, how many people died, and they lost. Withdrawal, you call it withdrawal if you want. You can call it a change in relations, call it whatever you want, but they lost, right? The United States went in Afghanistan, pumped how many millions of dollars into that fight. How many innocent men and women were lost their lives over there, needlessly. And now they're withdrawing and they lost. They lost. Just to a bunch of people living in the mountains dressed in pajamas, packing AK-47s and a few RPGs, right? Basically. Now let's just say you had a population of beings who outclass the living shit out of us in those mountainous elements or the forest or whatever, and they live at home in your home turf, right? And you can't control them. And they outclass you severely. And if you provoke them on a large scale and they decided to lay down some waste on the human population, retribution, it's just another way, it's just an angle I was tossing around in my brain last night. I was coming at it from a different angle. And it was starting to make a little bit of sense if it is correct that our governments will not acknowledge these beings. They force our law enforcement officers, they force our military to change their report when it comes to an eyewitness experience with these things. They force them to. No, we don't talk about them, leave it. Right? Well, why? I'm always asking myself, why? Why do they do this? Why do they do this? And that's one reason that I think I've come up with for myself, for my missing pieces to my puzzle, is I think that possibly these beings, because they outclass us so easily in our backyards, I have a funny feeling that if they were provoked on a large scale, they could lay waste to a shit pile of human beings if they decided to at any given time. That's my thought about it. Possibly that is why our military, law enforcement, our government, whoever it is we think we need to answer to or look for answers from, I have a funny feeling that might be a strong point when it comes to not acknowledging these things. Just leave them alone. They're basically leaving us alone on average. Let's not escalate this because it could get real ugly. That's what I am confident that if they were provoked on a large scale, it would get absolutely ugly. There would be absolute guerrilla warfare in the nighttime, rurally starting off, and there is nothing we could do about it. Think about it. Compare it, not a direct comparison obviously, but it's not too far off when you compare to what the Afghani forces have successfully done in their own element in those mountainous regions. They laid waste to the world's superpowers. They did. Maybe not on that much of a large scale, but they won, right? Now you give these beings, when you take a super being that is so powerful, doesn't need fire, doesn't need weapons, and doesn't need a flashlight to see clearly in the night, and can possibly be here or be there at any given time. You never know, right? A lot of the experiences we're hearing from people adds up to that. Yes, they can be somewhere and be somewhere else in a very, very rapid time frame, right? That's a formidable opponent, right? Especially when they're already living on your land or sharing the land that you live on. There's a thought that I had. I hope that made sense. Gives everybody something to think about, to answer some whys of why we're not informed about these things in an honest fashion. And that, I think, for me, is starting to make a little bit of sense. Possibly. I can guarantee you, they do not want to have a friendly relationship with the major population. They don't want to be friends with us on average. They haven't been, they're not going to be. They're not going to be friends with us. They're not going to trade with us. They're not going to come and accept part-time employment on our farms. It's not going to happen. They don't want to be friends with us, period. Obviously, some of these beings are friendly with rural families the odd time. That's come up how many times now? But on average, these beings do not want to be a part of our community. And they're not going to be a part of our community. No way. Right? And nobody can make them. Like we can be made to do silly shit, including jamming a frickin' needle in our arm if we don't want to. Another topic. All right, so what do we got? I am going to go down through the July 2021 to make sure I don't double up. There's a lot. I had a follow-up from the Alaska earthquake email, and hopefully I'll get to that in a second. What's this? The Grigori. Hi Steve, I'll try to make this as short and to the point. I've been watching the channel for over a year now, listening every morning while making breakfast, coffee in hand. I'm not sure you have ever spoken of the Grigori or their Nephilim offspring. I copied and pasted the excerpt from the book of Enoch. And those men took me up on their wings and placed me on the fifth heaven. And I saw their many innumerable armies called Grigori. And their appearance was like the appearance of a human being. And their size was larger than that of large giants. And their faces were dejected. And the silence of their mouths was perpetual. And there was no liturgy in the fifth heaven. And I said to the men who were with me, what is the explanation that these ones are so very dejected, and their faces miserable, and their mouths silent? And why is there no liturgy in this heaven? And those men answered me, these are the Grigori, who turned aside from the Lord 200 myriads together with their prince Satanael. And similar to them are those who went down as prisoners in their train, who are in the second heaven, imprisoned in great darkness. And 3 of them descended, can't read that word, to the earth from the Lord's throne unto the place Hermon. And they broke the promise on the shoulder of Mount Hermon. And they saw the daughters of men, how beautiful they were, and they took wives for themselves, and the earth was defiled by their deeds. Who, in the entire time of this age, acted lawlessly and practiced miscegenation, and gave birth to giants and great monsters, and great enmity. And that is why God has judged them with a great judgment, and they mourn their brothers, and they will be outrageous on the great day of the Lord. And I said to the Grigori, I have seen your brothers and their deeds and their torments and their great prayers, and I have prayed for them. But the Lord has sentenced them under the earth until heaven and earth are ended forever. And I said, why are you waiting for your brothers? And why don't you perform the liturgy before the face of the Lord? Start up your liturgy and perform the liturgy before the face of the Lord, so that you do not enrage your Lord God to the limit. And they responded to my recommendations, and they stood in 4 regiments in this heaven. And behold, while I was standing with those men, 4 trumpets trumpeted in unison with a great sound, and the Grigori burst into singing in unison, and their voice rose in the front of the face of the Lord, piteously and touchingly. Wow, did you get that part? Dejected and the silence of their mouths, and sentenced under the earth until heaven and earth are ended forever. Now, I'm an Episcopalian, and Enoch was never spoke of, but this passage shows that Nephilim/Sabe are what is being spoken about. We're having more sightings, more TV shows and researchers exposing their existence. What happens when the Sabe have been acknowledged? Again, I'm a huge fan of the fact that the Sabe exist, plus how it ties to scripture, not allowed in the canons of the Bible, intrigues me. Just shining light from a different side, Sean. P.S. If you're ever in Northwest Florida, I want to snag a tarp and hit me up. All right, Sean, thanks for that. And for everybody else who's written to me similar, there you go. I finally did it. I shared that. All right, I did it. Take from what you will or not, or leave it. But basically those words of scripture has been emailed into me probably hundreds of times. All right, so I did it. I shared it. Chew on it. See what you think for yourself, or leave it. Thanks for sending that in, man. That took some time to do that for us. Appreciate it. Now, what do we got? Hi, Steve. I know you're busy, but could you let me send you Alaska BC books? Oh, shit. Dr. J. Robert Alley. I will. Sorry, man. I've been busy. I've been moving, and it's been chaos, and that has slipped me. I got it right here with a reminder. I don't even know what my new mail address is yet, but I will get that to you. Thank you very much for that, sir. Scared Out of Yosemite National Park. Hi, love your videos. My name is Rick and here's my story. I did a photo shoot in Yosemite National Park on a Saturday afternoon. I took the wife and kids figuring we could get a free trip out of it. It's an hour and a half from the cabin to the entrance of Yosemite. By the time the photo shoot was done, it was dark. I decided to head back since I was with the family. I'm not familiar with the roads. It had been snowing all day, so I didn't want to get stuck somewhere along the way. As I'm heading down the mountain, I look up and I see bright stars covering the sky. I realize it had just stopped snowing, so I tell the wife to pull over. As I get out, I tell her to lock the doors and roll the windows all the way up since it was cold. I walk 20 feet away from the car while on the road. So going back to where we came from, I take a 15-second delayed shot in order to capture more light. Okay, hold on a minute, I'm gonna back up for a second. So what you're telling me is, you got the wife to, quote, lock the car doors when you're only gonna walk 20 feet away from the car. I wonder if that's your sixth sense kicking in right there. Your intuition has to be. I'd guess. This is called a long exposure shot. Before I'm done, I hear twigs across the street to my right breaking as if someone was walking on them. I wasn't sure, but just to be safe, I ruined the photo by not letting it finish and pick up my tripod and walk back towards our car. I got next to our car and felt a little safe, but was still looking in the direction where I heard the twigs break. I clicked the bottom on my camera again to start the 15-second delay, and now I hear a woman's voice say hello. It sounded about 100 feet or so to my right, and it wasn't in the same direction where the twigs broke. It was directly to my right, deep in the forest. The hello sound welcoming but out of place. I looked around in disbelief and thought, who the hell? I was so tempted to say hello right back, but as I looked, I couldn't see anyone. Since it sounded somewhat far, I didn't feel any danger, but was on edge. I was looking into the woods the entire time until my camera clicked, indicating that the photo was done. As soon as the camera clicked, I put my hand on the camera, and as soon as I turned my head to look at the back of it to see the photo, I hear the woman's voice say hello again, but this time it sounded as if it was only 20 feet away. The hello is like when you ignore your girlfriend. She says hello, kind of like saying don't ignore me. The tone was more of a sweet and loving manner, and not hostile or creepy. I felt as if it wanted me to let my guard down. As you can see, it's not a wide road, and I thought, how the hell did the voice get so close to me in a matter of seconds? I get so mad at myself in telling this part because I froze trying to figure out how she or it got so close to me without me hearing or seeing anything, since I was looking everywhere while my camera was doing its thing. I was trying to figure it out while on the road, and all of a sudden I thought to myself, go dumbass, it's a trap. I got my tripod, jumped into the car, told my wife, let's go, as I threw $6,000 worth of gear into the car. I was trying to make sense of it on the drive back to the cabin, but couldn't. 40 minutes later, we get to the cabin, and I figured I would tell the wife what happened the next morning, since she wouldn't be able to sleep if I had told her there and then. When I woke up, I saw my wife sitting up in the bed. I asked her how she slept, and she said she hadn't. I asked her why, and she said because of the woman saying hello. I asked her how does she hear anything if the windows were up. She looked at me like she didn't know what I was talking about, so I proceeded to tell her what happened. She said, no babe, last night as soon as you went to sleep, I went to go check up on the kids. I heard a woman outside of the cabin saying hello. I looked outside and saw nothing, so I figured it was my imagination. She said she came to bed after a couple of minutes not seeing anything, and a little bit after the woman said hello again, but sounded as if she pressed her lips against the door. I asked her why she thought that. She said because it sounded as if she'd gotten in, but when she went to look, nobody was there. She then said she woke me up and she thought she had heard something, and when I heard nothing, she said I went back to sleep. I was so upset because I told her that I think I hear something is one thing and someone outside is another. I wasn't too mad at her because I understood the fear that she felt. We had the whole day for us and we used it driving back home. I'm one of those men that always believe that everyone has a phone to record something, and when people talk about things and there's no video or any kind of proof, I always feel like it's not true because everyone has a phone in their pocket. This experience humbled me and shut me up because when fear hits you, you're not thinking rationally. And that's one of the many things that go out the window when dealing with something surreal. I want to thank you for giving me and many others a voice. If it weren't for you, I would still have been needing to tell my story. I have another story that I'll email you about the same cabin the same night. And that's a pretty wicked photo, man. Ricardo, thanks for that share. That's an odd experience, but it's unfortunately, it's also a common one, right? We've had similar experiences come in where people said their friends' voices were mimicked. They've had their pets' names called out the same way they called out for the pets from the forest. Parents sound like somebody said they heard their mother's voice calling to them from the forest. Meanwhile, mom was in the house. All sorts of weird shit, right? And too bad you didn't add on your other experience in the same email. So who knows when I'm going to get to it. But in the future, if anybody writes in and they're going to save another one for later, put it in the same one, all right? We want to hear it all, everything you got. And when your number comes up on here, I want to utilize every second I can for you to get you shared with all of us through me, through this channel, right? And thanks again for signing in, and I'm looking forward to finding your next email, man. My Bigfoot story, Mark has read. Hi Steve, been following your channel for at least a year now. I've always been fascinated by the unexplained and enjoy hearing people's stories. Growing up in Southern California in the late 60s and early 70s, my friends and I spent almost all our summers up in the mountains at one of the many swimming holes available. It was nice back then when it wasn't crowded and there was no graffiti on the rocks like there seems to be now. I'll never understand why people feel the need to spray paint on rocks up in the mountains. Yeah, no shit. I don't know why they have the need to spray paint anywhere myself, but whatever. Anyway, one day it was getting toward evening. I was with a couple of my male friends at a place between Ventura and Ojai called Camp Comfort. I remember we kept going. We kept hearing this really loud gibberish when we were making fun of whoever was talking over the hill, saying they must be drunk Norwegians or something. No, I'm actually Norwegian. No offense intended to anyone out there. No offense intended to anyone out there. My friends thought it was hilarious and wanted to stay, but I just wanted to leave. Another time we had gone hiking, there were probably 4 or 5 of us, and one of my friends had a huge old army tent his dad had let him use. We wound up hiking even after it got dark, trying to find a spot big enough to set up the tent. I remember it being super quiet, and as we were trying to get the tent up, I had an overwhelming feeling of terror. Normally, I felt safer in the mountains than the city. I've always been a person who takes a while to fall asleep, but that night I couldn't wait to get into my sleeping bag and immediately shut my eyes with a feeling like something bad was going to happen and fell right to sleep. When we got up in the morning, everything seemed normal. The feeling was gone, but I still remember to this day how scared I felt, and I'm a 67-year-old woman now. I still enjoy the outdoors, although I live in Minnesota now and my health limits me. I always listen to my inner voice, though, and if it doesn't feel right, I leave. Keep doing what you do. I'm a little envious of your new home. It looks beautiful, and I think you worked hard for it. Jerry, thank you so much for that share. It takes time to do that, man. It takes time in your lifetime to go out of your way to type out something and share it here through me for everyone. I actually absolutely appreciate that. And you're right. You go with your intuition. You go with your gut feelings with every decision in life, whether it be relationships, business, or your safety outdoors. I've been doing it for years and it's worked for me, man. Never go against your guts, ever. Please do not share the last name if you read. Please do not share the last name if you read. Of course I won't. I won't share anything you guys don't want me to share ever. Unless I'm absolutely half asleep and I screw up. I think I might have done that once or twice maybe. Hi, I love your channel. I found it after my experience sparked some curiosity, so I did a little YouTube searching. I was a little hesitant to write and speak about this because I'm a Christian pastor. I travel a lot for work and play worship music all over the USA. I enjoy hiking and all nature stuff and prefer car camping over paying for a hotel. In October 2020, I was staying on the Mountain Loop Highway, Washington State, while playing music near Granite Falls. I decided to camp on the Mountain Loop. It was so amazing out that day, and since it was October, there was little to no traffic. And to my surprise, the nicest camping spot there was totally open. I remember feeling very happy and wishing someone else was there to experience this waterfront camping spot with me. It was misty and foggy, with occasional bursts of sunlight. Just an amazing day all around. I actually felt very happy. I started a small fire, and it was difficult to start a fire with the amount of moisture in the Washington woods. It was about this time that the sun completely faded. I immediately felt uneasy in my spirit. I'm a very spiritual man, and I'm fearless when I'm resting in the Spirit of God. But for some reason, I was having trouble shaking my fear that night. I camp all the time over the U.S., but I felt watched, like many of your subscribers also have said. After feeling watched, I put out the fire, even though it took me a while to start. I was getting wet and colder anyway, so I retreated to the car early for bed. Even in the safety of my car, I felt strange, like eyes were on me. I have curtains installed in my car for sleeping. Like I said, I travel a lot, so I closed the curtains for privacy. And though I was alone, I did feel a bit better after that. So I started to read a book and get ready to sleep. I was physically exhausted, so I should have slept like a log. I felt oddly scared earlier that night, so in my prayers I asked for protection and fearlessness in my spirit. After this, I felt much better and started to nod off. I would say right around 1 a.m. I was awoken. I looked out the curtains, saw absolutely nothing. My windshield was all fogged up and wet anyway, so I couldn't see anything, but if I wanted to, even if I wanted to. But then I felt a weird thing. This is the best described as a small sonic boom or a mini earthquake right around my car. Maybe this could also be described as a huge pressure change around my car, if that makes any sense. It felt like my car sank a couple inches and then came back up. I don't know. It was actually pretty difficult to describe. I was pretty scared and started to pray again immediately. Once again, the prayer made me feel better. And I was now extremely physically exhausted, so even with all the chaos, I was able to get back to sleep. However, right about 3 a.m. I was woken again, and the sonic boom thing happened again right after I woke up. I don't know how I was awoken before 2 different earthquakes. I'm wondering if anyone has reported something similar. Also, I checked the United States Geological Society the next day for seismic activity, and there were no earthquakes anywhere close to Washington that night. I still don't understand this experience. I also don't understand my rational fear, considering my usual fearless attitude. I can't say for sure that was a Sasquatch encounter. I can say for sure, praying to Jesus works for everything, people. God bless you. I'll be praying for you and your family. Keep doing what you're doing. Glory to God. All right, man. Thanks for your kind words and prayers. And I have no answer for you from me. I have no clue. I know that obviously we talk about the feeling of dread and fear being inflicted on us a lot on this channel. That's probably what drew you to this channel and drew you to sending in your experience. But you're descriptive of a sonic boom and the car sinking and rising. I haven't a clue, man. I haven't a clue. Maybe somebody that's listening, and they might be able to touch on it in the comment section below. But thanks again for sending that in, and be safe out there with all your remote car camping and traveling. Oh, this Canon camera keeps shutting off, always has. I think I got online and I found some instructionals for it. It's Canon 5D Mark III, and you put on a video, you have to completely clear the SD card off, the memory card, put it in, hit record, and then it'll substantially record for a while, but it seems to only do 4 6-minute files, and then it just decides to shut off. And of course, there's no red light on the front of the camera to let me know it's running, so I have to check it every once in a while and look back. I see the camera stopped, and then I gotta go take the card out of the camera, put it in the computer, fast forward, see where I left off, figure it out on the phone, put it back together, start again, hope to God it doesn't stop again. It's a little aggravating. But oh well, here's my little bitch for the moment. Here we go. Hopefully I can hear the shutter shut if it stops again to save me some time. Steve, my name is Ted. Sorry that I'm a little long-winded. You may use my name. I've told these stories a few times myself. They were never ridiculed, at least not to my face. It usually prompted a story from someone else. I was born in the California Sierras to an avid outdoorsman. After a few years, we moved to the Central Valley so my father could find a better paying job to raise his family. If my dad wasn't hunting or fishing his time off, he was thinking about it, and I was always going with him. In addition to that, we were both avid archers, as I was competing in tournaments at the age of 9 and continued until I left for a 4-year enlistment in Uncle Sam's Navy. When I got out of the Navy and joined the working folks, I was anxious to get a bow and get back into archery. As luck would have it, a co-worker that has also just got out of the Army was into archery, and we hit it off like brothers. I rejoined the local club along with my buddy and spent many hours flinging arrows every week. As you can imagine, shooting that much, we'd become very good shots. In 1974, we had planned a bow hunting trip to the Sierras for opening day of deer season. However, we decided to take our wives out to a new movie the night before we left. It was a documentary called The Legend of Bigfoot. There's some bad timing. The topic wasn't foreign to me because my grandparents had lived up and down the Sierra Nevada mountains for many years, and I'd heard them telling stories that supposedly came from the loggers in the different areas they lived in. In that movie, they had recreated the sounds of Bigfoot as described by witnesses. The next morning, we were off to the hunting area that was between 6,000 and 7,000 foot elevation. After the morning hunt, we met back at camp and decided to go up the canyon to shoot some squirrels. The canyon was really a giant meadow with steep mountains on each side. After about a mile hike, something screamed from a few hundred yards up the side of the mountains to our right. This noise was not any animal or human that I've ever heard, and my partner said the same. It started out as a low guttural growl and increased in pitch until it was just lower than a screaming female. It held that noise for at least 5 to 6 seconds. It was no human, it was not a lion. I'd experienced a lion screaming on several occasions, including on our back porch as a child. Dad filled the cat's butt with rock salt and he didn't do that again. We both stopped dead in our tracks. I said, "What was that?" Before he could answer, it screamed again. We both said that sounds like the recreation sound in the movie The Bigfoot. We both looked at our bows, turned around and headed back to camp for the pistols. We didn't hear it again the rest of the hunt. A few years later, we were both on a deer hunt with a few other pals in an area that has a ski run when it snows, around 5,000 feet. We were to meet up at the crest of a mountain and decide what to do at the time. At that time, I was hunting on a steep incline toward the meeting site when I noticed that something or someone with very heavy footfall was pacing me off to my right side. I could easily hear the footsteps and the crunching of the mountain cabbage that had dried up during the summer. When I stopped, it would stop. I looked and waited for a few seconds or until I caught my wind. Then I would continue. It did the same each time. I got to the point of doing something I never do, and that's to put an arrow in my bow while hiking up or down a hill. About 50 yards from the top, it was no longer there. Nothing crossed the dirt trail at the top of it, the hill either. Now, I'm not saying either of these incidents were a big hairy creature, but I sure as hell know they were not the usual creatures that we're used to encountering in the mountains. I still remember it like it was yesterday, and I'm 72 now. I believe that many folks have heard things like that in the mountains, but were not as experienced with mountain creatures as we were. They probably just think it's a deer or a forest creature that they can't see. Thanks for doing what you do. The world needs more guys like you. Maybe there would be more honesty in the world. Thanks for sharing, Ted. Ted, thank you for sharing, man. And I can tell all of you out there right now, as soon as I read or know of or meet someone who has got many years on me on this planet, meaning our senior human beings, I listen with intent. There's probably no other more experienced, knowledgeable people on the face of the planet than the older human beings of the population, right? They're the ones that have seen and done and learned and witnessed much. And they are who we need to listen to, right? Not that stupid MSN mainstream bullshit that is available and pumped into us and our children today. We need to listen to the human beings that have been here on this planet the longest when it comes to knowledge and experiences, right? But anyway, getting onto that, I wouldn't mind adding something to that because I've thought about it quite a bit. So me, obviously, I am quite familiar with the habits and reactions of wild game in North America, right? And this is what confuses me when it comes to these beings, who I look at as very intelligent beings, human-like beings who outclass the shit out of us. But the confusing part for me is they also have tendencies or traits like wild game does. You know, like here's an example. Let's take what a bear does. Both species of bear, black bear, grizzly bears, they both chomp their jaws and swing their heads back and forth when they're getting nervous, right? They all do that same trait. It's a species trait. They all do it as a wild game species. Deer, as many of you know, deer will blow, right? And they'll stomp their foot. Or when they're nervous, stomp their foot and stand staring, stomping their foot. All deer do that. They all do it, okay? What else? You know, dogs growl. Canines growl. When they're nervous or scared, they growl. They all do it. Now, human beings, we typically don't have that many exact same reactions across the human species as the wild game does. You know, like when we get scared, some people laugh, some people freeze up. On average, Many women scream out loud, blood-curdling screams when they get scared. Some men do scream too. I've seen male friends of mine scream when we scared them intentionally, or even about one buddy of mine had a phobia about birds, and there was a bird dive bombing him, and he was running screaming. But what I'm saying is we don't all have typical solid traits of what we do, how we react, how our body moves, right? As human beings compared to wildlife. But the Sasquatch, they've been reported to swaying back and forth. All of them have been reported doing that. And to me, that's more like a wildlife thing, reaction that is shared by wildlife of a certain species. Right? The bears chomp their jaws to swing their heads, right? But the Sasquatch sway back and forth. So that's what it can make it confusing to me as to exactly what they are. You know, what else do they do? The pacing, when they pace us. How many times have we heard about them paralleling us, step for step, stopping when you step, but they're making sure that you can hear us. And I was thinking about this the other day. All right, so numerous times people have reported the looks on the faces of these things. They looked at them like like people said, quote, "It looked at me like it hated me, like it wanted to kill me and end me right now." That thing looked at me with absolute disgust and rage. How many times have we heard that? Right? Now let's entertain one side of the coin where a lot of people say there's an agreement in place. There's an agreement, there's a treaty from way back when. How somebody could prove that, I haven't a clue, but let's just say it was true. And then you take that average, the average emotional look that has been put upon us, that look of hatred, disgust. Now put that attitude on a being that's paralleling us down the road. You're walking down the gravel road on the trail, this thing's in timber paralleling, you're doing the same thing. Now I have a funny feeling that maybe possibly if you added in that disgust and that hate to that being that you can't see that's paralleling you, it could possibly be, as an example, with attitude, it could be possibly going like this. Yeah, I'm right here, and I can dust you anytime I want it. You know what I mean? Just be, I know I can't cross the line, but I'm making sure you know I'm here and I'm watching your sorry ass and I can't stand you. And I'm gonna freak you out. You know, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But knowing what their attitude is on average when they look at us with hate and disgust, if you're to put that attitude into a being that's paralleling you in the timber, you could almost read into it that they're trying to make a point that I outclass your ass, you make me sick, I can't stand you, and I wish I could just come over there and pop your head off, but I can't. But I'm gonna walk beside you and let you know it. Maybe, right? As you're trying to make sense of it. But then again, the paralleling us, walking when we walk, stopping when we stop, that's possibly another more like an animal trait with the species, right? I don't know. You know, caribou, when you scare a caribou, it'll pace back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It'll make a clicking sound, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, slowly coming near us. Basically a suicidal move. They're not the smartest animal in the world, but it's a shared trait in that species as a wild animal. See what I'm getting at? It's a confusing topic to take on, and it's even more confusing to try to figure it out on your own. But the more we listen to each other, the easier it is to possibly come up with some more realistic explanations, right? Anyway, I gotta go, but I'll be back and I'm gonna be sharing a whole lot more with everyone and going through I gotta get to more of these people. We have so many intelligent people emailing in, it's ridiculous. There's so much knowledge being poured in, it's absolutely awesome. And it kind of excites me in a way. When I go to crack open my emails, it excites me. So I can't wait to see who we're gonna hear from or what we're gonna hear. And it just excites me to think that another piece to my puzzle, another missing piece to my puzzle is on its way, and it might be in this inbox right now. And I love that. I love learning, right? Anyway, keep it coming in. Be safe out there, and I'll be back shortly.